Tom liked quiet places. Every evening after work, he walked to a small hill outside his town. It was not a tall hill, but it gave him a clear view of the wide sky. He would lie on the soft grass and watch the stars appear one by one. The town. Lights below seemed far away, and up there, only the sound of crickets filled the air. This was his escape from the noisy world. That night, the sky looked brighter than usual. A cool breeze moved through the tall grass. Tom lay on his back, hands behind his head, and smiled at the endless black above. Filled with tiny lights, he always wondered if someone out there could see him too. He had read books about space when he was a boy. He imagined giant ships, glowing, cities floating in the dark, and strange beings walking under alien skies. But those were just dreams. No one in his town believed in such things. To them, the stars were just faraway lights. Tom's mind wandered. He thought about his life, his small job at a repair shop, and how nothing exciting ever happened to him. A laugh escaped his lips as he spoke to the stars without thinking. "Marry me," he said in a loud, playful voice. The words were a joke, meant for no one, but saying them made him feel silly and free. He laughed again, shaking his head. "Yeah, right. Like anyone out there can hear me," he said to himself. Still, the moment felt strange. The wind grew calm, and for a few seconds, it was as if the world had gone still. The stars above shined brighter, almost like they were listening. Tom blinked, thinking it was just his eyes playing tricks on him. After a few minutes, he sat up, brushing bits of grass off his shirt. The air smelled fresh, like rain might come soon. He looked up again and saw a long streak of light move across the sky, a shooting star, he thought, and made a small wish. Though he did not believe such things really worked, he stayed on the hill for another hour, just watching the night grow darker. Far away, an owl called. The cool wind returned, making the leaves whisper. Eventually, Tom stood and started walking home. His little joke was already leaving his mind, but somewhere far beyond what human eyes could see. Something had happened, light years away, deep in the black sea of space. A small ship floated near the edge of a distant star system. It was silent, except for the faint hum of its engines. Inside, a single figure sat at a round console, looking at streams of glowing symbols on a glass-like screen. The figure was a girl, though not a human girl. Her skin had a faint silver glow, like moonlight on water, and her hair shimmered as if it carried the light of 1,000 tiny stars. Her large eyes reflected the screen's blue light as she adjusted a control. She had been traveling alone for many weeks, searching for something her people had lost long ago. A signal, an ancient call, had been sent into the void hundreds of years before she was born. Her mission was to find its source or anything that might lead back to it. She had heard many false signals during her journey, broken noise, strange radio waves, meaningless voices from unknown worlds. But tonight was different. Her console beeped softly. A new sound came through the receiver. A human voice, clear, warm, and carrying a strange tone she had not heard before. She adjusted the translation tool, but the words were simple enough to understand even without it. "Marry me." The girl's eyes widened. She repeated the sound in her mind. It matched the ancient code her people believed was a call for unity between worlds. For them, it was not a simple request about love. It was a promise, a bond that meant two worlds would work together as one. She quickly traced the origin of the voice. It came from a small blue and green planet in a distant spiral arm of the galaxy. Her heart began to race. Could this be the one they had been waiting for? She checked her ship's path. It would take her less than one full rotation of the planet. To reach it, the choice was simple. She set the coordinates and engaged the silent drives. The stars outside her window shifted as the ship turned toward its target, on Earth. Tom reached his small apartment and unlocked the door. He tossed his jacket on a chair and made himself a cup of tea. The night was still in his mind, and he could not help but smile when he remembered shouting to the stars. What a stupid thing to say, he said out loud as he sipped his drink. He turned on the radio and let the soft music fill the room. Outside, clouds began to gather, covering the stars he loved to watch. A few drops of rain tapped on his window, and he thought maybe tomorrow would be a good night to stay inside. He had no idea that somewhere far above the clouds, a ship was racing toward him. A girl from a world he had never heard of was coming, carrying his voice with her, believing it was meant for her. The next day was ordinary. Tom went to work, fixed to old bicycles for customers, and spent the afternoon cleaning his small workbench. His coworker, an older man named Ben, asked if he had any plans for the evening. Tom shrugged and said he might go up to the hill again. If the weather cleared by sunset, the rain had stopped, and the sky slowly turned gold, then deep blue. Tom walked to the hill as usual, enjoying the cool air after the storm. The grass was wet, but he did not mind. He lay back and looked up. The stars were returning, one by one, and the moon was a thin silver shape in the distance. He felt calm, thinking how small he was under such a vast sky. But far away, just beyond the reach of the moonlight, a faint glow was moving quickly. It was not a star, and it was not an airplane. It was Lina's ship entering the upper layers of the atmosphere. Without a sound, her eyes stayed on the coordinates. Her hands moved over the controls with care. The signal she had followed was strong now, close, almost within reach. She slowed the ship's speed and activated the cloak, making it invisible to human eyes. Within minutes, she would be on the surface of this new world. She would find the one who had spoken the ancient words. She would see his face, and she would know if her long journey had been worth it. And so, while Tom lay in the grass, watching the stars and thinking this was just another quiet night, something was already changing. The air above the hill began to shimmer. The sound of the crickets faded for a moment, and a soft light started to form in the darkness. Tom sat up, frowning, wondering if his eyes were playing tricks again. The light grew brighter, closer, until it was just beyond the hilltop. Something, or someone, was coming. The light on the hilltop grew brighter. It was not sharp like the beam of a flashlight and not as blinding as the sun. It was soft, like the glow of the moon, yet it pulsed gently as if it were alive. Tom stood slowly, his heart beating faster. The crickets had gone silent, and even the breeze seemed to stop moving. He took a step forward, trying to see more clearly. The glow began to change shape. At first, it was just a round ball of light, but soon, thin lines of silver spread from it, almost like petals unfolding. The air around him felt warmer, and a faint hum reached his ears. Then, without warning, the light faded, leaving behind a small craft resting on the grass. It was smooth, with no visible doors or windows, and its surface reflected the stars above, as if it were made of liquid metal. Tom's eyes widened. He could not move for a moment. His first thought was that it must be some kind of advanced drone or experimental machine. But the craft was silent and still, and its shape looked nothing like anything built on Earth. A soft sound broke the silence, a quiet hiss, like air escaping. Part of the craft's surface rippled and opened. A figure stepped out. It was a girl. She was not like anyone Tom had ever seen. Her skin had a gentle silver tone that caught the starlight. Patterns like faint, glowing lines ran along her arms and neck, moving slightly as if alive. Her hair was long and smooth, and it shimmered, with shades of white and pale gold. Her eyes were the most unusual, large and bright, reflecting every point of light in the night sky. She stopped a few steps away from him, standing very still. Her gaze stayed on his face, calm yet unreadable. Tom felt a strange mix of fear and wonder. He had imagined aliens before, but never like this. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The air between them felt heavy, as if the world was holding its breath. The girl slowly raised her hand. Something small and round rested in her palm. A device of silver and glass. She pressed its surface, and a sound came from it. "Mary." "Me." It was his own voice, clear and exactly as he had said it the night before. The sound replayed once more, then stopped. She closed her hand round the device and looked at him again. Her expression unchanged. Tom's mouth opened slightly. He remembered the moment he had shouted those words to the stars. His mind tried to make sense of what was happening. That was just a joke, he said softly. The girl tilted her head, as if studying his tone. She replied with a series of soft, flowing sounds in a language he did not understand. Her voice was light and smooth, almost like music. Tom took a cautious step forward. I don't understand you, he said, shaking his head slowly. The girl tapped her wrist. Where another device was attached, it gave a small blink of light. Her next words came in broken, slightly delayed English, as if the machine was learning while she spoke. Name, Lena, she said, placing a hand on her chest. You call me. Tom pointed at himself in surprise. Me? I called you? She nodded once, her eyes steady. Tom felt a nervous laugh building, but forced it down. This was not the time for jokes. I didn't mean it. I was talking to the sky, just being silly. The translator took a moment to process before her. Voice came again. Words, old signal. Important. You've chosen. Chosen. For what? Tom asked, frowning. Lena glanced up at the stars, then back at him. Bon, help, save. The words were short, but they made his skin prickle. Save. What did she mean? He stepped back, still unsure if this was real. His mind told him to run back to town, but his feet stayed planted. Something in her voice, even with the broken translation, carried a weight that made him listen. Lena took a slow step closer, her silver pattern shifting gently across her skin. She did not seem threatening, but her presence was unlike anything he had felt before. She reached out and placed the small recording device into his hand. It was warm, almost alive. Tom looked down at it. The surface was smooth and cool now, but when he turned it, faint lines of light ran across it, forming strange shapes. What do you want from me? He asked quietly. Her answer was delayed again as the translator worked. Come, learn, help my people. The wind returned then, brushing past them and making the grass sway. Tom's heart was still pounding. He wanted to ask 100 questions. Who she was, where she came from, what her people needed, but the words stuck in his throat. Lena seemed to sense his confusion. She lowered her hand and looked toward the distant town lights. Tomorrow, she said in halting English, pointing first at him, then at the hill. Here? Tom swallowed hard. You want me to meet you here tomorrow? She gave a single nod. Before he could say more, she turned and stepped back toward her craft. The silver surface shifted open again, and she stepped inside. The glow returned, surrounding the ship, and with no sound at all, it lifted into the air. Tom watched, frozen, as it rose higher and higher until it was only a faint point of light against the stars. Then it vanished completely. The night was silent once more. The crickets began to sing again. As if nothing unusual had happened, Tom stood alone on the hill, holding the strange device in his hand. His mind raced. What had just happened? Who was she really? And why had she come because of something he said as a joke? He closed his fingers around the device. It pulsed softly, as if waiting. He knew sleep would not come easily tonight. Tom barely slept that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the silver glow, the patterns on Lina's skin, and the way she had spoken his words back to him. He woke early, drank 2 cups of coffee without tasting them, and kept checking the strange device on his table. It still pulsed softly, as if it was alive. All day at work, he was distracted. Ben, his co-worker, noticed. You look like you saw a ghost, Ben joked while fixing a bicycle chain. Something like that, Tom replied, forcing a small smile. He knew there was no way to explain what had happened without sounding crazy, even if he did try. No one would believe him. By the time the sun began to set, Tom's chest was tight with both nerves and curiosity. He left work early and started toward the hill. The air was clear, and the fading light turned the sky orange and pink. He could hear the distant hum of the town behind him, but each step toward the hill felt like leaving that world behind. When he reached the top, the grass was still damp from the morning dew. He stood there, looking around, half expecting nothing to happen. But then, a faint hum returned to the air. The glow appeared again, not as bright as before, but enough to make the grass shimmer. Lina's craft touched down without a sound. This time, the surface opened quickly, and she stepped out. She looked exactly as he remembered. Silver skin, flowing hair, bright eyes that seemed to hold 1,000 tiny lights. The patterns on her arms moved like rivers of light under her skin. Lena raised her wrist, and the translation device blinked. "You came," she said in halting English. Tom nodded. "Yes, I came." They stood in silence for a moment, looking at each other. Then Tom decided to speak first. "I don't understand why you're here. You heard me say something I didn't mean. I was joking." The translator took a second before her voice came. "Not joke. Ancient call. You speak old words." "My people search long time." Tom frowned. "Old words? My people don't have any ancient call like that." Lena stepped closer, pointing at the device he held. "Your sound same as signal." "Signal means unity. Two worlds join." Tom shifted uncomfortably. "I don't know anything about that. I'm not a leader or an explorer or anyone important." She shook her head slowly. "Important is not name or title. Important is choice." Her words, though broken, made him pause. "Choice, yes," she said. "Your choice changed my world." Tom rubbed the back of his neck, unsure what to say. He thought about walking away, pretending this had never happened. But then he saw the way her eyes seemed to dim when she looked down at the ground. He sighed. "Tell me about your world." Lena hesitated, then tapped a small crystal-like object on her wrist. A light appeared between them, shaping into a floating image. It showed a planet, blue and white like Earth but with rings of silver dust. As the image turned, Tom saw vast oceans, floating cities that glowed in the darkness, and tall crystal towers that shone in the sun. "It is my home," Lena said softly. The image changed. The cities dimmed. The oceans turned gray. The silver rings broke apart. Storms swept across the surface, now dying. Lena's voice was quieter. "Air, weak. Water, poisoned. My people, fewer each cycle." Tom felt a weight in his chest. "What happened? Core, broken." She explained. "We try to fix, not work. Need a new place, new home." She pointed at him. "Your words, my people believe, sign. Bond between us, help both worlds." Tom shook his head. "I'm just one person. How could I help save a whole planet?" Lena stepped closer, her gaze steady. "Not alone. With me. With my people." He opened his mouth to answer, but before he could speak, the sound of the wind returned. Stronger now. The grass around them bent, and Tom noticed the way Lena's hair lifted slightly as if charged by energy. She seemed to be waiting for him to decide. Tom looked at the image of her world one more time before it faded. He thought about his quiet life, about fixing bicycles and drinking tea alone. Then he thought about the vast cities in her vision, the oceans, and the endless stars. "I don't know," he admitted. "This is too big for me." Her translator blinked. "You learn, I teach. You strong, you human." He gave a short, unsure laugh. "Being human doesn't make me special." Lena tilted her head, studying him. "Special is not perfect. Special is try." Her words hung in the air. Tom realized she truly believed what she was saying, and a small part of him wanted to believe it too. He looked at her again, and for the first time, her expression softened into something like a smile. "Come," she said, holding out her hand. Tom hesitated, then slowly reached out. His fingers brushed against her palm. Her skin was smooth, warm, and faintly humming, as if energy ran through her. She closed her hand gently around his. "Tomorrow, I show more," she said. Tom nodded. "Tomorrow." She stepped back toward her craft. The silver surface opened, and she disappeared inside. The glow rose into the air, and within seconds, she was gone again, leaving only the quiet hilltop behind. Tom stood there for a while, looking at the stars. His mind was full, his heart unsteady. He knew he should be afraid, but instead, he felt something else, curiosity, and a pull toward a world he had never seen. The next day felt longer than usual for Tom. He tried to focus on work, but his mind kept drifting back to the hill and the silver-eyed girl, who had appeared from the stars. Every sound, Every small reflection of light in the corner of his eye made him wonder if she was already watching from somewhere above by evening. His restlessness was too much. He closed the shop early, telling Ben he wasn't feeling well. Instead of going home, he headed straight toward the hill. The sky was clear again, a deep blue turning slowly to black. The first stars were appearing as he reached the top. Tom waited, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. He tried to tell himself that maybe she wouldn't come, that maybe last night was the last time. But deep down, he knew she would. The faint hum came again. It was soft, but now that he knew the sound, he recognized it instantly. A glow touched the edge of the hill, and Lina's craft appeared, lowering itself with smooth, silent grace. This time, when she stepped out, she carried a small case made of the same liquid metal-like material as her ship. She walked toward him. With steady steps, her eyes fixed on his. "You came," Tom said quietly. Lina's translator blinked on her wrist. "Yes, must talk." They sat on the grass. She placed the case between them and touched its surface. It unfolded like water flowing apart, revealing a set of small crystal-like objects, each glowing faintly in a different color. "What are these?" Tom asked. "Memory stones," Lina replied through the translator. "Hold. Show. Truth." She picked up one of the stones, a pale blue one, and placed it in his hand. The moment his fingers closed around it, a vision filled his mind. He saw a wide city floating above the clouds, towers shining like silver mirrors. The air was filled with gentle music, and strange birds with long wings glided between the buildings. People like Lina walked across bridges of light, speaking in soft tones. The vision shifted. The same city appeared, but the towers were cracked. The sky was dark, and the birds were gone. Storms spun in the distance. The sound of music was replaced by a low, rumbling wind. Tom gasped and opened his hand. The stone's light faded. "That is what my home was," Lina said, "and what it is now." He looked at her. "It's beautiful. Or it was. What happened? Core of world broken." She explained slowly. "We used too much, it took from planet without giving back. Now air is weak. Water is dying. My people cannot stay long." Tom's chest tightened. "So you came here to find a new home." She shook her head. "Not just a home. A partner. Someone to join, to bond. So our worlds share and protect each other." "You call me." Tom rubbed his forehead. "I didn't mean to call anyone. I was just talking to the sky. I don't know anything about leading people or saving worlds." "Not need to be leader," Lina said. "Need to be willing." Her words were simple, but they struck something inside him. He thought of his life, quiet, ordinary, and small. He had never been needed for anything big. But here was someone telling him he could matter. Lina took another stone from the case. "This one glowing green. This is my forest," she said. Handing it to him, the vision was of tall trees with silver leaves that shimmered in the wind. Rivers of light ran between them. Strange animals moved through the branches, their eyes bright with curiosity. Then the vision darkened, showing the rivers drying up and the leaves falling in clouds. When Tom let go of the stone, he realized his hands were trembling. "Your world is dying," he said. "Yes," she replied softly, "and soon my people will have no sky to see." Tom looked at the case, then at her. "What can I possibly do?" Lina met his eyes. "You can join me, learn, share human ways, teach us to live with less harm. We teach you how to heal planet. Together, both survive." Tom leaned back on his hands, looking up at the stars. The idea was impossible, yet something in her voice made it sound real. "And if I say no?" Her gaze lowered for a moment. "Then I return alone. My people keep searching. Time is short." The weight of her words hung between them. The wind moved gently through the grass, carrying the smell of the forest below the hill. "You're asking me to leave everything," Tom said quietly. "Yes," she answered. "But you will see more than you ever dreamed, and you will help." Tom thought of the visions, the shining cities, the forest of silver leaves. He also thought of the broken towers and dry rivers. He could not imagine watching a whole world fade away, knowing he could have done something. Lina closed the case and stood. I stay one more night, she said. Then I must go. Think, Tom, choose. She turned and walked back toward her craft. The silver door rippled open, and she stepped inside. The glow lifted into the air, then rose high above the hill before. Fading into the night, Tom sat alone, his mind heavy. The case of stones was gone, but the images remained clear in his thoughts. He had always looked at the stars as something far away, beautiful but untouchable. Now, they felt close, so close. That one had stepped down to stand beside him, and she had asked him to follow. The morning after Lina's visit, Tom woke with the memory of the visions still fresh in his mind. Every detail, the silver force, the floating cities, the storms, felt real, as if he had truly been there. He sat at his small table, drinking tea, and kept glancing at the window, half expecting her craft to appear in the daylight dot by noon. His restlessness pushed him to do something unusual. Instead of going to work, he walked to the edge of town and followed the trail toward the old riverbank. He thought about what she had said the night before. Together, both survive. The words kept turning in his head. When the sun began to set, he climbed the hill again. This time, he didn't have to wait long. The faint hum came from above, and the soft glow lowered to the grass. Lina stepped out, carrying no case this time, only the small wrist device. You came, she said in her slow, careful English. Tom smiled faintly. I said I would, and I thought, maybe you should see more of my world, if you want to understand it. Lina tilted her head, curious. Show me, she replied. They walked down the slope together, heading toward the river. The air was cool, and the sky turned deep purple as the sun slipped away. Fireflies flickered among the reeds, and the water reflected the first stars. This is where I used to come when I was a kid, Tom said. It's not much compared to your floating cities, but it's peaceful. Lina crouched near the water's edge, dipping her fingers into the current. Her silver patterns glowed faintly in the reflection. Beautiful, she said simply. They followed the river upstream until they reached a small wooden bridge. Tom leaned against the railing, watching the water flow beneath them. Do you have rivers like this on your planet? Lina's eyes softened. We did. Now, few remain. They stood in silence for a while, just listening to the sound of the river. Then Lina spoke again. Show me more. So Tom took her to the forest near the hill. The tall trees stood close together, their leaves whispering in the wind. Lina ran her hand over the rough bark, studying it like it was a rare treasure. She paused to look at small flowers growing near the path, bending close to breathe in their scent. At one point, they came across a deer grazing in the clearing. It looked up at them, ears twitching, then slowly returned to eating. Lina's eyes widened, and she whispered, alive, not afraid. Tom smiled. Animals here can be gentle if you don't scare them. They continued until the sky was filled with stars. When they reached the hill again, they sat in the grass, looking upward. The translator blinked on her wrist. Your world, she said, has many things my people have lost. You live close to it. This is why I came. This is why we need you. Tom looked at her. You could have chosen anyone. Why me? Her gaze met his without wavering. Because you spoke, because you called, and because you're human. He let out a quiet laugh. That's not much of a reason. Human is different, Lina said. Your kind fights, but also protects. You build and heal. My people need that balance. Without it, we fade. Tom thought about her words, the sincerity in her voice. And what would happen if I went with you? You would learn our ways. Teach yours. Bond. It is not just marriage. It is unity. Of the paths. He leaned back on his elbows, looking at the stars. It sounds big. Too big for someone like me. Lina's voice was calm but certain. Big things start small. For the first time since meeting her, Tom felt the tension inside him loosen. They didn't need to make a decision that very second. Maybe they could just learn from each other for now. He sat up. Tomorrow, I'll show you the town. Her eyes brightened slightly. Town? Where people live, work, and complain a lot. He said with a grin. Lina tilted her head, clearly not understanding the joke, but she nodded. I will come. They sat together a little longer. Tom pointed out constellations, telling her the stories humans had made about them. She listened closely, as if each word carried weight. Then she began pointing to stars and naming them in her language, the translator slowly offering rough meanings: river of light, mother's watch, the gate between. By the time she stood to leave, Tom felt the space between them had grown smaller. She stepped onto her craft, pausing to look at him one last time before the glow lifted her back into the night sky. Alone again, Tom stayed on the hill, looking at the stars she had named. They didn't feel as far away now. The next day, Tom stood at the top of the hill before sunrise. He didn't have to wait long before Lina's craft appeared, glowing softly as it descended. When she stepped out, she looked different. Her eyes were sharper, and her movements were quicker, as if something was pressing on her mind. "You said you would show me the town," she said, but her voice was less calm than before. Tom noticed the change but nodded. "Yeah, but first, tell me what's wrong." Lina glanced at the horizon. "Others are coming. My people. They know I am here. They may not understand why I stay." Tom frowned. "Are they dangerous?" She shook her head. "Not to you. But they will want answers, and they may want me to leave at once." That was not the start he had hoped for, but he pushed the worry aside. "Then we better make the most of today." They walked down toward the small town. Lina kept her hood up to hide the glow of her markings, but she looked around with deep interest. People passed by without paying much attention, except for a few curious glances. Tom took her to the market first. The smell of fresh bread, roasted corn, and fruit filled the air. Lina paused in front of a stall with red apples, studying them like strange jewels. Tom bought two and handed her one. She took a careful bite, then smiled faintly. "Sweet, like the water fruit on my world, but smaller." They wandered past shops, a small library, and the old clock tower. Lina asked questions about everything: how the tower worked, why people carried paper bags, why some shops played music outside at the Riverside Cafe. Tom ordered tea for himself and something mild for her. She held the cup with both hands, warming them, her eyes following the boats drifting past. "Your world moves slower than mine," she said. "It is gentle." Tom laughed quietly. "We have our problems too. But yes, sometimes it's slower." The peaceful moment didn't last. The sound of a low, distant hum reached Tom's ears. He saw Lina's head turn sharply toward the sky. A formation of 3 faint lights was approaching fast. "They are here," she said in a low voice. Tom felt a weight in his chest. "And what does that mean for you?" "It means I must face them," Lina replied. "And you must decide." The lights grew brighter, and in moments, 3 sleek crafts hovered above the edge of town. They were larger than Lina's, their surfaces polished like glass. One descended toward the hill where they had first met. Lina stood, placing the cup down. "Come with me," she said. They hurried back to the hill, arriving just as the largest craft's ramp lowered. 3 figures stepped out, each wearing smooth silver armor with glowing lines. Their faces were similar to Lina's: high cheekbones, pale skin, markings that glimmered faintly, but their eyes held a harder light. The one in front spoke first. "Lina of House Wreath," the voice came through the translator. "You were sent to study. Instead, you remain. Explain." Lina's voice was steady. "I have found what we seek: the human balance, the strength and care we need. The leaders." Eyes moved to Tom. "This is the human." Tom straightened. "Yeah, name's Tom." The leader's gaze lingered. "He is not trained. He is not chosen." "Why him?" "Because he answers without fear," Lina said. "Because he listens." The second alien spoke sharply. "Our world fades while you waste time here. The bond must be made now, or not at all." Tom's heartbeat quickened. "Bond? You mean what you talked about before? Marriage?" Lina looked at him, her expression unreadable. "Yes, if you choose now, you come with me. If you refuse, I must leave alone." The leader stepped forward. "Understand, human, if you come, you leave this world. You may not return for many years. Your days will not be the same. You will carry part of Our fate. Tom glanced between them and Lena. The idea of leaving Earth felt impossible, but the thought of her leaving felt heavier. What happens if she goes without me? He asked. The leader's tone was flat. We continue, we lose more, and she loses what she came for. Tom turned to Lena. Her eyes met his without blinking. I cannot promise safety always, she said quietly, but I can promise you will not be alone. The wind moved across the hill, carrying the faint hum of the other crafts still above. Tom's thoughts raced. His job, his home, his quiet life. All of it could end tonight if he said yes. And yet, when he looked at her, he felt the same pull he had felt since the night they met. She was not just asking him to help her people. She was asking him to stand with her. He took a deep breath. If I go because I choose it, not because you ordered it. The leader nodded once. Then choose. Tom's voice was steady. I'll go. Lena's shoulders eased slightly. But she didn't smile. The moment was too heavy for that. The second alien stepped forward with a small silver band, no wider than a finger. Place this on your wrist. It will mark the bond. Tom hesitated for a moment, then slid it onto his right wrist. It tightened, just enough to fit perfectly, its surface warm against his skin. A faint light ran along it, matching the glow of Lena's markings. The leader spoke again. Then it is done. Prepare. We leave within the hour. Tom looked once toward the town in the distance. The streetlights glowed faintly, and the sound of the river drifted up the hill. He knew he might not see it again for a long time, but when he looked at Lena, he knew he had made his choice. The city of lights stretched far below the hovering ship in the clear night sky. Stars blinked like silent witnesses to what was about to happen. Aaron stood at the open hatch of the alien craft, feeling the cold wind on his face. Beside him, Lyra stood in her silver blue gown, the same gown she had worn when she first revealed her royal heritage to him. Her calm expression held both relief and sadness. This is your home, she said softly, looking down at the city. You belong here. Aaron looked at her and then at the city. And you belong among the stars, he replied. But we are here now, both of us, together. The events of the last few days had left the world in awe. News of the alien princess, the war averted, and the alliance formed between humans and her people spread like fire. The leaders of both worlds had spoken on broadcasts, praising the courage of those who risked their lives to bring peace. Aaron's name was now known far beyond his small hometown, but for him, the fame meant little. What mattered was that Lyra was safe and her people had avoided destruction. He remembered the moment they had stood on the alien flagship, demanding the enemy stand down. It had felt like a gamble, but somehow, together, they had pulled it off. The hatch door closed with a gentle hiss, and the ship began to descend toward the city's main landing field. Hundreds of people had gathered to greet them. Aaron could see banners waving and hear distant cheers. The sight made his heart race, though part of him still wished for the quiet nights they had shared under alien skies. When the ramp lowered, the sound of the crowd grew louder. Children waved small flags, and adults craned their necks to see the pair walking down together. Cameras flashed. Some people held up signs that read "Welcome Lyra" and "Thank you, Aaron." Lyra stayed close to him, her eyes scanning the humans with a curious wonder. Your people are loud, she whispered with a small smile. You should see them at a sports match, Aaron joked, which made her laugh softly. At the base of the ramp, the city's mayor stepped forward. He was followed by a group of officials and scientists. The mayor shook Aaron's hand firmly and then bowed slightly to Lyra. On behalf of our city and our planet, welcome, he said. You have given us peace when we feared war, and you have shown us that the stars are not as far away as we once thought. Lyra nodded respectfully. Your world has shown great strength, she replied. In kindness, the crowd erupted into cheers again. Reporters shouted questions, but Aaron and Lyra were led away to a quieter area. There, away from the noise, they could speak freely. What happens now? Aaron asked. Lyra looked up at the sky. Now, I return to my people. I have duties I cannot ignore, but I will not forget you, and I will not let the distance between Our worlds and what we have found. Aaron felt a tightness in his chest. So this is goodbye? She shook her head. Not goodbye, only see you soon. They walked together to the edge of the landing field. Her smaller personal craft awaited her there. The sun was starting to rise, painting the horizon with soft gold. Aaron realized it was the perfect moment to say what had been in his heart since the day she landed in front of him. Lyra, he said quietly. That night I joked to the stars, asking them to send me someone to marry, and then you appeared. Maybe it was a joke to me then, but now, I mean it. Will you come back to me? Lyra's eyes glistened. She stepped closer and placed her hand over his heart. Yes, Aaron. One day, I will come back. And when I do, the stars themselves will be our witnesses. They stood there for a moment, the noise of the city fading behind them, the hum of her ship rising ahead. Finally, she stepped back, her hand sliding from his. He watched as she boarded her craft, the engines lit with a soft blue glow. Slowly, the ship lifted into the sky, growing smaller and smaller until it became just another point of light among the countless stars. Aaron stayed there long after she had gone. Watching the sky, he felt no sadness, only a deep certainty that this was not the end. Somewhere out there, Lyra was looking at the same stars, thinking of him. The city began to wake fully around him. People moved on with their lives, but for Aaron, everything had changed. The stars were no longer distant, they were a promise. And as the morning light spread across the horizon, he whispered to himself, see you soon, Lyra. Far above, in the vast sea of space, an alien girl smiled in silence.